And I'm gonna chase it, and I'm gonna chase it. I know we can't ignore it, no matter how.
And so I'm especially excited to be able to welcome Eric Wan, Principal Consultant of RDI Worldwide, and somebody who has been delivering leadership workshops in Korea and in many other countries around the world. And we're going to have a chat today about a special element of leadership, which is something more on a day-to-day basis and something that most people generally dislike. And they don't really like to have these kind of things. What are we going to be talking about today, Eric?
But before that, yeah, absolutely, something related to current event. I think you share with me this particular piece of research regarding the recent situation with COVID-19, where people are working a lot from home. And I don't know if you remember, one of the major benefits of according to people working from home, what was one of the major things that they like the most regarding working from home? Related to our topic today.
Well, commuting time is obviously gone. That's one of the things.
That's one of the things.
Perhaps not having meetings?
Absolutely. The key words that they used was less meaningless meeting. I think
meaningless meetings.
That was one of the things that people find really grateful for when it comes to working from home, because simply your boss wouldn't call you in, hey Gordon, let's have a quick chat over here, and then that quick chat turned into a 2 hours meeting where he was just talking 90% of the time, right? So thank you for the introduction. As you said, I'm the principal consultant for RDI, and when it comes to leadership development, I'm a little bit more practical. I like to share practical stuff with people. I'm not knocking other leadership consultants or leadership coaches approach, but from working in Korea, I tend to find practical advices, practical framework a little bit more appreciated with our local clients.
Sure.
Something that you have noticed probably.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could summarize our approach at RDI as being practical, experiential based. We're trying to get people. We're not trying to teach people anything. We're not lecturing. We want people to.
Terrible time at school. I wouldn't want to share that, create that experience with people. You're at work now, so there's no reason for you to go back to school, right? So that's what we do, right? We give practical advice that helps you do your job. We're not here to teach.
So when it comes to meetings, maybe let's start with, where are some of the areas that people are going wrong with meetings?
I think a lot of the things when it comes to, like people saying, the meaningless meetings, I think generally, Simon Sinek said, start with the why. Like if you have a meeting, always ask yourself, why are we having this meeting? Is it because you have always had this meeting? Is this something that you've always done in the company? You always have a Monday meeting, you always have a Friday meeting, so then you have to have this meeting. So I'll give you a little story that I had with a client regarding meeting, right? So as always, you have clients meeting. So then the client said, okay, so I've said, let's try to meet in person next Monday for 1 hour at this time. Funny enough, regardless of topic, regardless of the people involved, regardless of what you're going to talk about, it's always 1 hour meeting. We'll get into that later, right? So, okay, 1 hour meeting. So then I got a little bit curious, right? Because I don't like meaningless meeting. I don't think people should be having meaningless meeting. So what I did was I sent an email and said, so Mr. J, what are your expectations for this meeting? What do you want to talk about? And good enough, right? So he sent me an email saying, these are stuff that I want to talk about. These are some of the questions I have. Do you need this? Do you need that? So what I did was I simply answered all those questions on an email. And then he came back and said, oh, thanks. Turns out you just saved me 60 minutes on Monday.
Plus travel time, plus everything else.
I think so going back to like what's wrong with meeting, I don't think there's anything wrong with meetings, right? I think meetings are a necessary part of the business world. We have them internally or externally. They have a purpose.
Yep.
Have a clear purpose, like why we're having this meeting. If you have if you want to bring 10 of your colleagues, 10 of your team member into a room, think about what do you want from them.
Right. If you're bringing 10 people, taking an hour of their time, that's expensive.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you know, managers and executives always thinking about the bottom line.
Right.
Think about the cost of a meeting.
Right. People don't like meeting. It's the same reason that people don't like training, because you're taking them away from work. So you better have a very, very good reason for having a meeting, right? And you can't just say that we've always had this meeting, right? So this story of the Thanksgiving ham regarding people always doing things because that's how things have always been done, right? So there's there's one couple, that's right, there's a couple, two of them, a wife and a husband. So every Thanksgiving, or every Christmas, for those of you that don't celebrate Thanksgiving, so every Christmas they would bake a ham, a piece of nice ham, and every time the wife would cut off the front and the back of the ham before she bakes it. So then my husband got curious, right? So honey, why do we always cut off the top and the top part and the bottom part? And then the wife said, oh, mom has always done it this way. That's how we do it in this family. So one day the husband got curious, and then he asked his mother-in-law, so mother-in-law, why do we always cut off the top and the bottom when we bake ham? I said, oh, grandma has always done it this way. That's how we always do things in this family when it comes to baking ham. So he was like, didn't really answer my question, right? He's a curious kind of a guy. So one day when he was visiting grandma, he asked grandmother-in-law, right, so why do we cut off the top and the bottom of the ham? He said, back in the days, we have a small oven, so we have a small pan, so we always have to cut off the top or the bottom, because otherwise it won't fit. I have no idea why you guys always cut off the top and the bottom, though. You guys have huge ovens. So a lot of the time, people do things back in the days, there's a tradition because it makes sense in that particular context, right? But then you gotta, as leaders, you gotta encourage your people to ask more why, right? Why are we doing this? Why do we have this meeting? What do we want to get out of it? And as a leader, you want to encourage that kind of curiosity in your team.
So you've set the why. You've made that clear. You've perhaps developed that mutually agreed agenda for the meeting. What else can you do to kind of maximize the effectiveness of meetings?
A good question. So very, very practical, right? You can try this out in your team. If it doesn't work, let us know in the comment section, right? More than happy to adjust things for you. Because as I always say, a lot of our advisors are like training wheels when it comes to riding bicycles, right? If you have never ride a bicycle before, it's probably helpful. But at some situation, you might want to remove it. But going back to your questions, I see a lot of meetings being done with no facilitator and moderators. That's crazy. People just go into a meeting and then just wait for the first person to talk.
Facilitator, moderators, quite a big word in association with meeting. What do you mean exactly when it comes to a meeting?
Simply, it just could be one person in a team that takes turn does it. Once a month, every quarter it changes. Somebody just to keep the agenda on track.
Okay.
So first thing first, you should have an agenda, right? As a team meeting, you should be going around checking with your team member that is this the agenda that we want to talk about. Think about how you're going to contribute to this particular agenda. Give them time, right? You got to give people time to think about what to say if you really want them to talk about things in meeting, right? Contribute in a meeting. And within the meeting, the role of the facilitator, the moderator, or however role you want to name it, is to just make sure that the agenda is being stick to. If there are people, or if there are agenda that it happens a lot, right? People go off track, or they go too deep, or they go to a different
I don't want to
direction.
digress, but
Yeah, I'm gonna.
we all know from that point on, you're going to digress.
You're going to power it through, right? You're that kind of person. So that moderator role is to be empowered, and it's also a good way to empower junior employees to give them the authority to say, look, let's stick back to this particular topic because we already only given this topic 20 minutes. If we want more time, then we should have another time to talk about this because it's not fair for the people who are required or who have things to say for other topics as well.
Okay, and maybe one last tip for effective meeting management?
Just be transparent, right? If you think about, because somebody asked me like, so how do you do things multiculturally when it comes to Korea, UK, or German or whatnot, right? Think about it this way. Think about one of the most successful football team in the 20th century, Manchester United. It's debatable as an Arsenal fan, but
Let's not get into that.
objectively speaking, right? Manchester United, they have players from Switzerland, France, Germany, Danish, Scottish, Welsh, English, across the country, multicultural, Korea as well, right? Can't forget Park Ji-sung. But how do they do things? They don't do things in a particularly country culture way. They do things in the Manchester United way. They do things in a way that makes sense when it comes to Manchester United. So it's important for you to have a set of team culture when it comes to that. And that requires very, very transparent conversation with your team and asking yourself and asking each other, how do you want to get things done here? How do we do things here? So that had to be very transparent. And as a leader, you need to facilitate that kind of conversation to empower your team to give you ideas on what makes sense for them and how do they want to work.
Okay.
So transparency when it comes to ways of working, I would say that's the fundamental tips when it comes to great meetings and just great teamwork.
Thank you very much for sharing
Bit
some
of
of
a-
your insights.
You're very welcome. A bit of a bite-sized learning, but hopefully if this is received well, there are more topics that you want to hear from us, then looking forward to hear from our audiences.
All right. Well, this has been a topic of meetings that we've focused on, and the three key takeaways are: have an agenda, let everybody know why the meeting is happening, assign a facilitator or moderator just to make sure that everybody stays on topic, and lastly, be transparent. Develop what is that culture of meetings that you're having, so that you can have more effective meetings. I've been here, Gordon Dudley, CEO of RDI, with Eric Wan, Principal Consultant, sharing some of our experiences when it comes to having more effective meetings. We've also been joined by the beautiful bird song here in the background. I hope you can hear that. And looking forward to seeing you on the next session. And if you do have any other requests for other topics that that might be interesting for you, please let us know.
The comment section. Like and subscribe. That's how they do.
And I'm gonna chase it, and I'm gonna chase it.